What we have been eagerly awaiting has finally happened. Matthew and Diana are finally married and have the blessing of both Philip and Issa. Not only this, Philip, after being impressed by Diana, made her his blood daughter so that she can be protected in the future from any harm caused by the vampire. And as far as Matthew is concerned, it seems like he is coming right on the track, and all thanks to Diana's love and courage. But, while their love life is finally coming back on track, the mission they are on is still pending. So, it's time Diana and Matthew will say their final goodbye to Philip and move on the journey they have no idea of. Diana and Matthew arrive at Bohemia, where the king's guards greet them both, but instead of a warm welcome, the couple is met with cold and hostile guards. They say that the king is tired of Queen Victoria sending her spies and messengers to his kingdom. But Matthew, who is not an ordinary messenger, boastfully says that king would surely like to meet them. The guards oblige him and take him to the king, who graciously only grants them a few minutes. Matthew and Diana notice his art collection and palace grandeur. It's different than England, but it is no less extravagant. King Rudolph is no fan of English missionaries and shows it during the conversation with Matthew. However, Matthew suddenly is also equally stubborn about the king. He passive-aggressively insults him, but Rudolph says that he knows about Matthew being a vampire, and it does not impress him. Matthew then jumps to the reason he was in Bohemia and asks about Edward Kelly. Rudolph says that the person is not with him, and he stayed in Prague. However, Matthew again insults him by saying that his spies told him otherwise. The king loses his cool, and Matthew as well becomes angry, but Diana intervenes between the two and says that Matthew is asking these questions because of her. She introduces herself as an enthusiastic alchemist and wants to meet Kelly for study purposes. Rudolph becomes intrigued by her and cheekily flirts with her by calling her the goddess of hunt, which is Diana's literary meaning. Matthew does not like it, but Diana shoots him a death glare because he is acting really weird. Diana talks to Matthew about his concerning behaviors, but he just says that he cannot tolerate anyone like the king flirting with his wife. At this time, his eyes are bulging out, and he looks furious and jealous. Diana is concerned by his sudden change in behavior and says that she can handle a few minutes of flirting if it will get them to the book. But as Matthew is about to say something offensive, Gallowglass comes to his rescue. Diana is happy to see him again, and they both hug. He notices that they are both fully mated but does not congratulate them. Don't really blame him, it is awkward commenting on someone's, especially your 15-years-old uncle's, private life. He brings them to their new residence, where the small Jack and Francois are waiting for them. Diana and Matthew are happy to see him again, but not too comfortable with the fact that their butler brought their child to a very dangerous place. She says that she had no option because Jack was restless without them. Diana's heart melts over this confession, but Matthew is still quite salty. Later, Gallowglass tells both of them that he could not find anything about Kelly, but Matthew is confirmed that Kelly is with Rudolph. Meanwhile, Diana receives a gift, an automaton of the goddess Diana, from the emperor as a welcoming present. But Matthew is not too keen to look at it. He knows that if the king likes anything or anyone, he will do his best to get it. And given that Matthew's blood rage is at its peak, he is not a fan of sharing Diana with anyone. Matthew talks about his growing Rudolph for Diana later at night. But Diana says that the emperor is always kind to her, so she can use it to their benefit. The sooner he trusts her, the sooner she will be able to get closer to the Book of Life. She finally convinces Matthew to let her go back to the castle, but he is not at all happy about it. The next day, Diana takes a gift back to Rudolph but sees that there is a long line. Gallowglass says that he will do something about the line and goes upstairs to accelerate the wait. Later, another vampire comes downstairs and meets Diana. He says that he recognized her because of Philip's blood vow and that he was discarded by his own clan. He sounds bitter and introduces himself as Benjamin Futchs, but he leaves before Diana can learn more about him. Meanwhile, Matthew is trying somewhere else to know about Kelly. He and Pierre go to the apothecary lab because Kelly will most likely conduct his experiments there. But there, he only meets the head there, who denies knowing anyone named Kelly. Matthew has heard better lies than him, so when he leaves, he sneaks into the lab and steals the book of appointments. He finds out about a meeting happening at an odd time, so to investigate further, he decides to wait for such a late and mysterious meeting. On the other hand, Gallowglass returns and calls Diana upstairs while other people leave. She successfully meets the king but finds out that Gallowglass lied and tells him that Diana had brought an art collection that he would love. However, Diana only brought an ancient text that Rudolph has no use of. He gets disappointed by the deception, and Diana can see his liking of her withdrawing, so she baits him with a very philosophical reply. Rudolph's interest rises again, and he happily takes Diana to his Jewish translator and transcriber, Rabbi Judah Low. He proudly shows him off as a Jewish magician who can read any ancient text. But Rabbi is much more humble and says that his only gift is wisdom, and Rudolph gets annoyed by his intellect. For the next quite a while, Rudolph shows Diana his art collection that he seeks pride in, but Gallowglass is looking for some clue that could trace them to the Book of Life. Meanwhile, Diana casually mentions the Philosopher's Stone, but Rudolph abruptly shuts up, saying that no one had ever made it. As night comes, Matthew faces two guards escorting a madman somewhere. He ambushes them rather peacefully and asks why he stole the book from Dr. D. Kelly shouts at Matthew, saying that the book belongs to him since it screams in his head. The guards escort him back, and it's clear that Rudolph is quite impatient with the lack of Philosopher's Stone from Kelly. Later, Matthew and Diana return to their apartment, and their Jack tells them that the Emperor invited both of them for a hunt the next day. Matthew is furious at him now, and he forces Diana to back out of it. But Diana asks why, and he replies that he does not trust the fact that the Emperor is flirting with her. Gallowglass interrupts their fight and tells them that he will look for the Book of Life at the Emperor's private gallery while he is busy with the hunt. Matthew reluctantly agrees but does not make any promises of being on his best behavior. The next day at the hunt, Rudolph is openly flirting with Diana, who only smiles in his response. He tries to insult Matthew by giving him a small-sized falcon for the hunt, but it plays out in his favor. Diana subtly asks about alchemy, but before she can take out anything useful, Matthew's falcon successfully takes out the Emperor's. And something that Rudolph dislikes the most is defeat. He angrily orders both of them to leave his lands and never come back. Back at their apartment, Gallowglass returns with the hand of a witch, vampire teeth, and a demon brain that he collected from the Emperor's personal chest. They realize that it would have some sort of link to the Book of Life, but now it was too late because Matthew had to satisfy his ego. There, Matthew has another fight with Diana about his jealousy, and finally, Diana asks why he cannot trust her. He replies that he trusts her, but with their mating, his blood rage is at its peak, and he can lose control in a second. He tries to leave, but Diana uses her magic to ignite a ring around him and explains the circumstances in a soothing voice, calming him. Later, Gallowglass returns to a half-burnt room and a satisfied-looking Matthew and says that the Emperor extends an apology and wants the couple to join him in the screening of his beloved Kunstkammer. Matthew agrees to go with Diana on the condition that they will leave on the same night for England. Diana realizes that this is their last chance, so she has to be on her best game. At the event, Matthew tries to apologize, but Rudolph cuts him off and says that all is done and dusted. Diana, on the other hand, tries to nudge Rudolph in the direction of the Book of Life by mentioning it and saying that he might have it in his possession. Rudolph gets angry at her bluntness and is a bit insecure that everyone knows about his secret, most prized possession. Diana then uses her magic to evoke a snake on his cup and shows that she is no ordinary person. Rudolph gets visibly excited seeing her powers and happily takes her, Matthew and Gallowglass to his secret chambers, where Kelly is chained along with the book. Rudolph orders him to give the book to Diana, but when he refuses, Diana uses her powers to get it. As she does so, a page in the book opens, and 3D illustrations of the Tree of Life emerge around them. Rudolph is amazed at seeing her powers and says that Matthew is allowed to take Kelly with him as long as he gives Diana to him. Matthew does not like the idea of Diana being with Rudolph, but as he is about to do something, Kelly snatches the book and rips 3 pages from it. Diana screams as if it hurts her to see this, but soon gets the now torn book out of his hand. Meanwhile, Gallowglass disarms the 2 guards behind him, and all 3 of them run outside the castle, where horses are waiting for them. Back at the dungeon, Kelly says that the book is still screaming in his head, but the remaining guard says that he does not care. However, the poor lad is taken out by an emerging Benjamin, who kneels before Kelly and devilishly says that he cares about the book. Previously, we saw that Diana and Matthew were able to find the Book of Life and escape Bohemia, but some things did not go as they initially planned. For example, Kelly was able to tear the first 3 pages of the book, which Diana hoped would not happen. Anyways, they are back in England and have to deal with the mess that was piling up when they were on their little trip. On a fine morning, Diana tries to read the Book of Life, but she is struggling to do so. Her attire suggests that she was up all night trying to understand the text, but to no avail. Matthew appears in the room and tells her that the book is making her insane and she needs to get a break for mental peace. Diana resists him, saying that the book is rejecting her and it is making her feel strange about herself. In the 21st century, Knox comes to Gerbert and says that Kelly sent the 3 pages of the Book of Life to all 3 species. Gerbert says that he will take the page from the de Clermonts, and Knox says that he will work to take the page from the witches. But it will be a little hard since the witches' page is already with them and Sarah at the Septors. On the other hand, Marcus is still heartbroken over Phoebe leaving him and his father's centuries-old deception. He looks at the Knights of Lazarus seal and decides that, for once, he wants to keep his human life over his vampire self. Miriam tries to make him understand the betrayal, but he does not listen to her and goes to Phoebe. He gives back her scarf and his seal and asks her to research about it if she does not believe him being a vampire. She angrily keeps the seal in her drawers and tries to think about anything else than Marcus. Meanwhile, Em is still quite persistent about calling Rebecca using higher magic, but just as she does the magic, Sarah appears, and they both have an argument over it. Sarah is worried that higher magic is addictive and is drawing Em into it, but Em insists that Rebecca needs them and is trying to tell them something. They both have a fight, and M leaves the room in anger. Later on the castle roof, Issa tries to console M by giving her a glass of wine and telling her never to sleep without solving the issues with her partner. I hope we're aggressively taking notes. M is touched by the gestures and goes to talk to Sarah in a very level-headed way. Back in Oxford, we are suddenly shifted to a hospital where Sophie gives birth to a beautiful baby girl. Everyone, along with Agatha, is present, and the young parents are overjoyed with the arrival of their bundle of joy. They name her Margaret, and everyone, including Miriam, is happy for the new parents. Marcus says that he can hear her blood dancing, which means that she is a witch. He then tells them that they need to move in scepters so that the Covenant cannot find them. Meanwhile, Phoebe asks her colleague to check the seal Marcus gave her and do some research herself. He excitedly says that the seal is an original. And there Phoebe realizes that Marcus is telling the truth. She goes to his house to discuss in depth about him. Marcus is quite open with her and says that she is the only human who knows about his secret. She is touched by this confession and the fact that Marcus opened his deepest secret because she wanted complete honesty. They both kiss and seem to get back together. Back in France, Sarah and M go together to the temple ruin to do the magic. Sarah wants to keep M safe while she is in the process of doing magic, and throughout the session, she is stressed about her love. Somehow the talk about the Knights of Lazarus comes up, and Marcus expresses his desire to leave his post. Phoebe is weirded out by it and says that he has the chance to actually do something about the centuries-old rules that he despises so much, and he cannot just give it to someone else. Marcus finds that she is telling the truth, so he flies to Venice to tell Baldwin that he is keeping the post to bring positive changes in society. Baldwin is infuriated over this juvenile behavior, but Marcus is firm in his decision. Later, Gerbert comes to Baldwin and asks him about the Oxford murders. Gerbert is no fool and knows that the killer has something to do with de Clermont's. Baldwin is aware of this and tries to keep their attention of them by giving the information he has about Sophie and Nathan's little daughter. He says that a witch was born to a family of demons and that she is a threat to the Covenant. If Gerbert dislikes anything as much as he dislikes the de Clermonts, it is the breaking of the Covenant. He is startled by the information and goes straight to Knox, who can do something about it. Knox, like the mischievous little witch he is, goes to the hospital to check on himself. He uses a spell to make Nathan and Sophie sleep and checks the baby girl. When her blood dances, he becomes satisfied that she is a witch, but before he can do anything else, Agatha comes into the room and demands he leaves the place. She threats to take his life if she ever comes near Margaret again. But Knox only replies that the Covenant will take the baby one way or another, so there is no need for a fight. Agatha is extremely scared by the threat because she knows the limits Knox tends to push. Agatha and everyone else knows that things are going tense day by day, and they desperately need Diana, Matthew, and the Book of Life back in the 21st century. But where are Matthew and Diana, and what is taking them this long?